Okay, I want to welcome everyone to this NASCA webinar on Inflation Reduction Act. I'm Mike Beacom, NASCA's Executive Director, and I'm excited to relaunch our webinar series. Last year, as many of you know, we took a break. Our board really looked at our strategic plan and evaluated all of the things that we do for member services. I think it was clear to our board that these webinars are very valuable to membership as a way that we can share with one another, and learn some new things about what folks are doing around the country. So we're pleased to relaunch this quarterly webinar series. Just a few reminders for today. Everyone, please stay on mute during the webinar. We're going to give both of our featured speakers an opportunity to do their presentations, and then we'll have a brief period where we'll have questions for both of them after that. We should have plenty of time for other states, other members to talk about what you've been doing related to Inflation Reduction Act in your states in this first period of that program. Today's topic really meant for us to learn about how state conservation agencies are engaged. I mean, this is historic funding. NRCS alone had close to $20 billion over these 4 years, and this first year of IRA funding really should tell us a lot. NASCA leadership has been engaged with NRCS and other partners going back to late 2022, making sure that our states are engaged. But this is our opportunity to check back in with our members, hear from you, not just the success, but where some of the struggles are, where the obstacles have been, communication. In the coming months, both in San Diego and then also in March during the legislative fly-in, our leadership plans to meet with NRCS, share some of this input that we've learned, and also explore some ways that we can help facilitate better partnering, better things that our folks can do to help the agencies roll out Inflation Reduction Act in years 2, 3, and 4. So with that, I want to introduce the folks that we have with us today from Iowa and Colorado to talk about what their states have been engaged with for IRA and learn a little bit from them. Our first speaker is Will Myers from Iowa Department of Agriculture and Land Stewardship. Will earned his bachelor's degree from Iowa State in environmental science and a master's degree in natural resources from Nebraska-Lincoln, and over 20 years experience working in agriculture and water quality programs, serving in leadership positions both in Iowa and Nebraska. Will joined IDOL in 2015 and currently serves as Field Services Bureau Chief. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Will, and you should be able to share your screen with us.
Thank you, Mike. My screen should be shared now, so hopefully everybody can see that. Thank you for the introduction, Mike. We also have another representative from our department, our division director, Susan Kozak. She will be on the call for about 25 or 30 minutes if she needs to bail me out. So we'll see if that happens, but hopefully we can get through our presentation here this morning. Today I'll be providing an overview of a new cooperative agreement that we've recently executed between Iowa NRCS and Iowa Department of Agriculture and Land Stewardship. I'll provide a little bit of background before I get into the details of the agreement, just on our partnership that we have within the state of Iowa. As we understand, it's a little unique compared to some of the other conservation agencies throughout the United States. I'll provide a little bit of context with our current staffing model and how that works within the partnership and how it ties in with this agreement, and then wrap things up with some details on the specific deliverables and details of that agreement today. So with that, just to kick things off on some of the background, as I mentioned, we have sort of a unique partnership. I know they're different as we look at others across the country and through different states, and always a great opportunity to learn about what other states and other conservation agencies are doing. But within Iowa, our three primary agencies are Iowa NRCS, the Iowa Department of Agriculture and Land Stewardship, and our 100 soil and water conservation districts, which are represented by the conservation districts of Iowa. So through our partnership, we really jointly work both from an administrative side and technical aspects to deliver our conservation program. And so we have within our partnership state, federal, and soil water conservation districts employees who do really a lot of the same tasks for both crossing over into state programs, into federal programs, and also with other district initiatives where we really truly do work in great partnership to deliver on our conservation program. And these are guided by a number of different mechanisms, including our overarching MOU. Iowa has rules and administrative code that help define what those specific roles are, especially as it relates to our partnership with Iowa NRCS, their standard specifications, technical assistance, and then with our soil water conservation districts as well, local policies and things like that. But really what's unique about our partnership is our communication and cooperation. And I think in my opinion, that's really the glue that holds a lot of what we do together is our constant engagement in the activities that we do together. So we have a pretty long history of working with different partnership agreements, contribution agreements with NRCS in particular. And so wanted to provide a little historical context and how that ties into one of our newer agreements that I'll be talking about today. And really most of our agreements focus on, the overall the delivery of our conservation program. So how we can uniquely identify different challenges to more efficiently and effectively deliver on those programs. A current agreement that we do have is it's called a contribution agreement. And this is a longstanding agreement that we have with Iowa NRCS. And it really provides match funding for a number of our soil conservation technicians that are employed by IDOLs, so they're employed by their state employees. And then we also have a number of contract employees. I'll provide a little bit more detail of that in just a minute. But this agreement is primarily based upon work product completion for conservation planning, design, check out the types of tasks that our state technicians would be working on in association with federal technicians as well. So we document and report on those items as well. This one that we're currently working under, the primary focus is with conservation technical assistance and also with some CRP work tasks. However, that's variable. These agreements have varied in duration. We're currently on a 1-year extension on a 2-year agreement, but the scope of those agreements vary over time depending on available funding. So we always try to take the opportunity and stay engaged where there's funding opportunities or things available, and then try to work to craft our agreement such that we can continue to deliver on those objectives as they're needed by the partnership. So we have a fee schedule that's really based on the work product deliverable. So that's an existing agreement, just as an example of one of the things that we do, but I'll actually be talking a little bit more about a new one that has IRA funding today. So really how we got into this agreement is we have a lot of growth, and folks nationwide know this, in conservation funding. There's new initiatives. We have a number of different programs that are being supported in Iowa. Huge growth in the Regional Conservation Partnership Program, other programs like that where we have a strong demand. There's more EQIP funding, all these program funding. We all have staffing challenges. We're always talking about staffing challenges. So how can we identify where each respective agency can grow our respective staffing support? And then also what comes along with that is how we address the technical assistance challenges. And so that's really the background discussions that got us thinking about how we can enter into a new agreement to address some of those ongoing challenges that we have. Just a little bit of a background on our particular staffing model. And I know this is a busy graph, but I want to highlight just a couple of things here. So within the state of IDOLs, within our field office staff, so these are all staff that are co-located with NRCS staff, with soil and water conservation district staff. They're all within the USDA service centers located within each county. So within Farm Service Agency, Natural Resource Conservation Service, sometimes rural development. We have all our staff in there too that are working to help deliver our respective programs. So within our 100 soil water conservation districts, we have 100 conservation assistants. Now 17 of these currently or recently, as of last fall, were of a 19-hour part-time classification, and those are in those blue counties that are highlighted there. And that was just a result of budgetarily, we weren't in a position to support those as full-time position. Those are traditionally some of our lower workload counties as well. So we did not have full-time conservation assistants in those counties. And our conservation assistants primarily help with some of the administrative tasks for our respective program deliveries. We also have 35 state-employed soil conservation technicians that basically do the exact same job as the federal soil conservation technician. I've got a map on the next slide of those. And we also employ between 35 and 40 780-hour, these are contract employees that we hire through the state of Iowa that are limited to that many hours in a fiscal year, but they do the same work as the soil conservation technicians as well. We also have 15 environmental water quality specialists that help work on special watershed projects initiatives in support of Iowa nutrient reduction strategy and other local water quality programs. And then we also help support soil water conservation district staff through interns, through NACD grant opportunities where we employ additional technicians. And then we've got about 30 watershed coordinators that receive some level of funding through IDALs as well. So we've got a lot of different things going on within these offices and a lot of moving parts. So keep in mind those 17, 19-hour conservation assistant positions. In addition to that, I wanted to call out the locations of our 35 IDAL state technician positions. So I have just a map showing our NRCS, Iowa NRCS is currently divided into really 4 quarters within the state. And then we have 25 resource teams. And those are the different colors, which you can see on the left-hand side of the picture. Or of the slide, excuse me. Again, location on the right-hand side, I'm showing where our state technicians are located in that red area. And then I just have, for reference, some of our priority Iowa nutrient reduction strategy, wetlands, and things like that, because that helps play into how we allocate staffing in addition to our regular conservation practice workload. So as we were looking at the needs that are out there, one of the things that was identified was, these 19-hour conservation assistant positions. These are generally in lower staffed counties as well from an NRCS perspective. So in order for them to get out there and to be able to do more work with the landowners and their customers, they need more support in the office to help with some of those tasks as well. So that's been identified as a priority need by NRCS to support that component as well. So our new partnership agreement, one of the key deliverables on that is to increase that support by converting those 17 positions to a full-time status. The other key deliverable is to increase our technical support by adding 4 additional full-time soil conservation technician positions. And so these are 4 additional IDAL state technician positions. So that will get us to about up to 39 total FTEs. And so those locations, we're still targeting those areas, but that's the other part of the grant too, because they're going to be helping to continue to assist with our backlogs and our continued ever increasing demand for workload. So I just have a table here just for reference that kind of shows what the specific deliverables are again on that grant and what the purpose of those is to date. So and it's covered up by a slide here. We've got, so over the next few years, our milestone dates for our conversion of those. So we already have converted, we've got 4 that are complete and 2 in process for 2023. And we've already are working through 3, and I have a request for the 4th for 2024. So we're working very quickly to get these positions converted over. All the ones we are doing now, we've prioritized that list with NRCS, but we're also trying to get those staff that either want to become full-time, or as we have vacancies, we're refilling those positions as full-time. So right now we haven't had any issues. We anticipate as we get through this year And we've got some of those that are in the positions currently at 19 hours. We'll have to kind of work through how we're going to make those adjustments for those that aren't really wanting to go to full-time, for example. And then this year, one of the priorities will be to start to work on those 4 soil conservation technician positions. Some of the details about how this grant is structured. So it's a 5-year agreement. It's $5.22 million that's provided over that time period. And those dollars are specifically to support those staff positions. So these IDOL staff positions. Our agreement is I don't know if it's unique, but it's the way ours is structured. So it gets funding from a number of different federal pots. So, you know, we're talking about IRA today. So there's IRA funding in there. It also gets funding from some of the CTA, EQIP, CRP pots. So some of those I referenced that earlier contribution grant that we utilize that utilizes those funding sources almost exclusively. Those are tied into this one as well. And I don't have the exact breakdown of what those specific funding sources are, but it uses a combination of those. And I think that's one of the things that helped to put this agreement together as it stands today. We don't have a match funding requirement as part of this particular agreement, which is a little bit different than our contribution agreement that we do have. And then, of course, there's the reporting requirements that go with it. I did want to mention too, because this is I think an important part of it. So this is just one agreement, but I was also working on some other ones as well. I wanted to mention the conservation districts of Iowa. They've also recently executed a new agreement with Iowa NRCS, and so they're adding an additional 25 administrative support staff, one for each of those resource team areas as well. So they'll have an additional 25 that the conservation districts of Iowa will be employing that will perform similar tasks to our CAs. However, they are unique in that they will not be supporting the soil water conservation district or those field offices themselves, but rather the resource teams within the state. And those resource teams are primarily charged with delivering the technical support for their respective areas. So again, this is one that it's pretty simple in scope, pretty basic, straightforward. So we moved forward pretty quickly with it. However, as you mentioned, Mike, there's a lot of other funding opportunities and things that are out there. So we're continuing to have active discussions with NRCS and assessing new opportunities for other growth, because we know there's the need. We know we have staffing challenges and hiring staff too. You know, we don't have any time to talk about that today, but any opportunity that we can have to try to grow and get more folks up there within the partnership and trained to help us deliver our programs, that's really what we're trying to do. So with that, I will wrap up. Mike, here's my contact information, and we can distribute any of that information so we can follow up as needed, but I will pass it back over to you. And so we can continue to move on and then move to questions once we're finished up here. Thank you.
Sounds good. All right. Thanks, Will. As he's shuffling back screen sharing, I'll introduce our other speaker for today. Rakel Sanchez is a grant specialist working in the Conservation Division at the Colorado Department of Agriculture. She graduated with a bachelor's in business administration, has a passion for people, and enjoys working with Colorado's conservation districts and helping fund conservation practices. So with that, Rakel, I'm going to turn it over to you and have you talk a little bit about what your state is doing with IRA.
Sounds good. Let me just share my screen. All right. So, like Mike said, my name is Rakel Sanchez, and I am the grant specialist for the Colorado State Conservation Board with the Colorado Department of Agriculture. So I manage a couple different grant programs, and one of those came out of some Inflation Reduction Act funding. So the Colorado State Conservation Board was awarded $2.1 million in IRA funding. A little over 1.8 million of that is allocated towards competitive subawards. subawards to Colorado's conservation districts for employing conservation technicians to assist with NRCS staff in executing IRA activities. So the funding gives the potential to hire 10 to 20 technical assistants across the state, and the salaries vary depending on skills, experience, and cost of living per location. A little background on our DCT program. We have a very successful DCT program that we have been doing for many years that is funded through our Farm Bill agreement. And so when we had this opportunity with the IRA funding, we thought, why not build a program that mimics that one? And so the purpose of the DCT program, it was developed as a way to preserve and increase conservation technical assistance to landowners, and it allows conservation districts to apply for an 80% cost share to employ technical staff to implement IRA conservation practices and planning on private land. So the technician is a district employee, and all responsibilities and decisions about employment ultimately reside within the District Board of Supervisors. So in order to apply, districts must be in statutory compliance according to CSCB standards. So a district is considered statutory compliant when they have submitted the following documents to DOLA every year. So their budget, exempt from audit, election filing, supervisors list, and long-range plan. They also must have an active unique entity identifier with SAM.gov in order to receive federal funds, and they must submit an application and budget that outlines all of the expenses for the DCT, including the match that they're going to provide. So how the technician funding breaks down is NRCS pays 75% of the technician salary, and the state board pays 5%, and the conservation districts pay 20%. The technician spends 80% of their time implementing IRA conservation activities, and the technician can spend the other 20% of their time on technical projects at the district's discretion. So, what are some specific activities related to the IRA DCT agreement? They are activities involving greenhouse gases, climate smart activities, ag forestry, and planning and outreach. The allowable activities for the district's remaining 20% of their time, or the district technician, sorry, the remaining 20% of their time. It includes providing technical assistance to district programs, but not program management, preparing and delivering technical information and workshops to landowners, but not event management for the programs, or writing technical parts for the grants, but not general grant writing. So we want to be very clear that these positions are not for administrative duties. The district manager cannot be the DCT, and vice versa. So I'm going to reiterate this a couple times because it's important. The DCT is a district employee. Although they work closely with NRCS, they are not NRCS employees, nor would they be working in the district's community without the business and financial investment of the district. So the district is solely responsible for hiring and terminating. They are responsible for all administrative supervision of the DCT. So NRCS cannot participate in the interview process. The district must notify the CSCB grant specialist with start dates and termination dates within 1 week. The DCT must always introduce themselves as an employee of the conservation district, whether it's on the phone or in person meeting with a landowner. So part of their position is raising awareness for the conservation district. So it's important to present yourself as part of the conservation district. Technical supervision, 80% of the technician duties are IRA NRCS duties. So NRCS helps provide training, computers, and access to vehicles at the discretion of the NRCS RTL, resource team lead. The technical supervision while working on NRCS projects, the DCT works under the job approval authority of the NRCS state engineer, Allocation and supervision of their daily workload is generally undertaken by the field office NRCS RTL. And the board may or may not allocate specific times when the technician is to work on the other duties that cannot exceed 20% of the technician's time that don't involve NRCS. So reporting requirements. The districts are required to submit short quarterly reports using a template that we provide them on our website. They have 15 days after a quarter ends to submit their reports. Each quarter, the district must report to us on the number of hours the technician worked, if there were any performance evaluations done, work duties and hours not related to NRCS, any training received, and any number of board meetings held and a number attended by the technician. So they must attend a minimum of half of the meetings held each year, and preferably if they held more than one a quarter, that they attend at least half that quarter. It just helps keep them engaged, and it helps the board know what that DCT is working on. Publicity efforts. So a secondary goal of the program after providing technical assistance is to promote awareness for conservation districts. With awareness comes recognition by the community, potential sponsors, such as county commissioners or local businesses. So we require a minimum of 2 publicity efforts, and they must include copies of those in their quarterly reports. We count those publicity efforts as anything from press releases to local newspapers or publications, articles for other publications. We have newsletters that we send out every month called The Scoop. And if they wanted to highlight their new DCT, they could send us the article and we could send it out. Posters, or even social media stories regarding the accomplishments of the DCT. Some of my districts blow that minimum out of the water and give me publicity efforts every month. Others are a little hard to get. So tracking the workload, we do have an IRA DCT activity tracking form that has to be completed every month by the DCT and signed by the NRCS RTL and district manager and then submitted to me. We do provide a template on our website, and as you can see, it just kind of breaks down what month, every day of the month, and the hours spent on that specific IRA activity. Reimbursement requests. Award funds are dispersed on a reimbursement basis, either monthly or quarterly, except if a district needs an advance at the beginning of the program. And so we'll either give them 25% of their award or $10,000, whichever is the least if they request it. We also provide them with the reimbursement request template with detailed instructions on our website. We expect that match is expended in tandem with the grant expenditures at a rate of at least 20%, and it must be accounted for in detail on their reimbursement request along with the source of the funds. So, if they are paying the district salary from another grant, we want them to explain that and explain that it is not a federally funded grant, or if they are using a mill levy, etc. They must provide the number of hours that the technician worked, and they are required to submit W-2s at the end of the year to us. So here's an example of the reimbursement request that we provide the districts to fill out. So again, up here, you would just have their technician name and the hours, the money that they're requesting, and then the match that they're providing. And I think it got cut off on my little snip, but we also provide a calculator at the bottom that tells them the match that they have to meet to stay in that 20%. So we really try to make it as easy and helpful as possible for our districts who are participating. So talking about match, their 20% match that they can provide. NRCS has allowed the districts in this opportunity to use both cash match and in-kind match. And this helps pay the technician salary for the program. So cash match examples, pretty easy. It's traceable, has receipts. Examples include like the salary that they paid, health and retirement benefits, travel costs, etc. In-kind match this is a rare opportunity that we were given, and it allowed that districts who might not have been able to participate in the past to have funds to participate in this program. So it's calculated on a monetary value of non-cash contributions that support the programmatic work. So it's typically in the form of personnel, goods, and services, including direct and indirect costs. So in-kind examples, volunteer hours, equipment, board member technician supervisory time. So an example of that is, let's say your board member took a couple hours took a couple hours in the afternoon to show the DCT something about the board or the district and how it operates. Well, we can count what the 4 hours of what that board member might charge in their time as an in-kind match towards the DCT salary. So today, by the numbers, we have received 12 applications, and one of those applications, I think, applied for 2 full-time employees, one applied for a part-time. So with that, we've been able to fund 13 and a half new positions. Out of those districts that applied, 6 of them were districts who haven't been able to participate in the past. So allowing that IRA, the in-kind match, has really opened the door for districts who haven't been able to participate before or in the recent years. The total budget submitted that we received was $856,000. So I think that we're off to a really great start in our first year, and I can't wait to see where the program goes. But yeah, that's it for me. And I thank you guys for giving me the time to present and share with you all what I'm working on.
All right, very good. Thank you both. I guess with that, I'm going to open it up for questions. If you raise your hand, we'll see you. If you're more comfortable putting it in the chat, we can look for that as well. I guess one thing I'll open up a question I have for Will. With the CDI agreement that you referenced, is that a similar structure to what you worked out with multiple funding pools that include some IRA? How much do you know about that agreement?
I don't believe that the CDI one is an IRA funded agreement. And I can verify the funding sources for that one, but I don't believe that it is. Again, that's something it was something I was trying to think of, but I've got to get verification on there. I have a copy of the agreement, but it doesn't say where all the funding came from on that.
Well, and part of my curiosity too is, did you have conversations with your state association as far as your agreement and what they were structuring? What is that relationship like as far as comparing notes and learning from one another?
Both of these agreements, both the CDI one and the IDOLS one, they were really discussed and negotiated really in alignment with one another. So actually the 3 of our respective agencies kind of worked both of them out, and we kind of made decisions based on what fit each respective agencies the best, and staffing models and that type of thing. So at the end of the day, I know the CDI one was a little bit more complicated and went through some different channels just because of the structure of that entity. I think it was a climate smart initiative grant that they had applied for, particularly for that particular agreement. But that's something that I would need to verify. But I do know that we were having active discussions at the same time on how we were going to execute these, and just in full disclosure too, we're still working through all the details, although they are actively hiring. I think they've got between 10 and 13 of those positions in the process of being filled too, and we're kind of midway through ours too. So it's not without a lot of work on the back end to try to do everything, although the agreements themselves in principle are pretty simple.
Very good. Anyone have questions for Will or Rakel that they'd like to ask? Well, not seeing any, if something comes up, you're welcome to ask for this balance of the period. I do want to shift a little bit because I would like to learn from some of the other states, some of our other members that are participating today, about what conversations, discussions, agreements have looked like in your state related to IRA, and maybe specifically with your NRCS state office and how that's gone. And I'm hoping folks can chime in here. Let us know what you've been working on.
This is Monica Wickman with the Kansas Department of Agriculture. We were actually awarded a $25 million grant through the Farm Bill and Inflation Reduction Act for the Kansas High Plains Aquifer. And we will work with producers to reduce the water usage in the Ogallala region. And some of that will be facilitated through hiring irrigation specialists that will be hired throughout the groundwater management districts.
Very good. Do you know how many specialists that would be?
It would be a total of 10 in 5 groundwater management districts.
Very good. All right, thank you.
Welcome.
Others to share. And I should say too, I know we have Nikki Brinson from Colorado and Susan Kozak from Iowa. If you have anything to share on the programs that were presented from your states too, feel free. I guess I can kind of have some prompts. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Will.
I just saw a question in the chat from Nikki wanting to know how the conversations or agreements started and if we initiated those. With this particular one and with our other agreements, it's hard to say how it exactly initiated because we're really in almost continuous communication with Iowa NRCS on when we talk about staffing and programs, just because of the nature of our positions and they're really doing almost, especially with our state technicians, identical duties to what the federal employees are doing. So it's we knew we had an identified need, and so often when these come up, if we hear of something, we will bring it to them. But in this instance, I know a lot of the need, especially as it related to the conservation assistant positions that we employ, that there was really a federal need that was identified too. And so I can't say for certain that they said, hey, we've got an opportunity, can you guys help us out? Or whether it went the other way around because of the nature of our relationship. But it was very mutual in terms of how that one initiated. I can say with regards to our other contribution agreement that we have where we provide match funds, that is one that I continue to work with them on to see what type of funding is available, because it's variable, it changes. And oftentimes I will hear something or pick something up in a meeting where I'll hear NRCS is getting some funding for, CSP or some other type of different program. And so I will approach them and say, hey, is there opportunity here for us? How can we fit in here with what we have to offer within our agency?
And maybe going with that, something for other states to comment on, one of the things that NRCS really encouraged its partners to do is to reach out to each of our members and encourage those discussions. I think our folks have done that, but I'd like to hear, have people had challenges not hearing from NRCS? We know a lot of the state cons are 2 years or less on the job, so there's been a fair amount of turnover in these last several years. Did you have to initiate conversation? Have you not heard from that office? What has that been like for some of the rest of you? And you can feel free to just add comments too if you don't want to chime in.
Hey, Mike, it's Chris Calclaser. I'll just jump in just
Hey,
real.
Chris.
Our communications right now within our CS is essentially, they've just been passing along information to us about what their plan is, which right now is to plus up some of the existing programs that they have. And so as of right now, we discuss any very specific agreements that would, benefit the districts or benefit us as the state agency. But it is something that we would like to explore. I'd love to even get a copy of Will's agreement, if that's possible, to give us maybe a place to start, to have discussions with them, because our districts really suffer here, and we can't provide enough adequate state funding to help them. And being able to tap into some of the Inflation Reduction Act, I think would really help the districts. I did have one question for Will too, is who is actually supervising those positions that were basically a result of this agreement?
So those positions, as I mentioned, they're all IDOL's positions. So they work for the State Department of Agriculture. They are supervised through. So I'm the Field Services Bureau Chief. So they're actually supervised. I have 4 area managers or supervisors that manage all of our field office staff located within those offices. So they operate about the same equivalent level as the assistant state conservationists for each one of the respective areas in the state. So they are managed by our staff. However, their day-to-day direction on what tasks they're working on comes from the district conservationist. Does that help, Chris?
Yeah, that helps. Were any of the positions that were funded, were any of those district positions that report to like the district board?
None of those are district positions. They're all funded through IDOLs with this agreement.
Okay, got it. Thanks a lot.
Okay, and then for the group's sake, you see Lisa from Oklahoma mentioned they have not had discussions with state NRCS and are waiting to. That's an example of a state where there was a long time, really strong partnership between our member, the commission, and state NRCS, and there's been a recent turnover. And so those are some of the things we're trying to identify. And also when I meet with NRCS leadership or our board has those discussions, we pass that along to make sure that, those connections are made where needed. Any other examples of this, of states that have not heard from NRCS, but you have an interest in what might be possible through IRA? Okay. So just to give kind of an update, like I mentioned, we're going to have discussions in a couple of weeks in San Diego. And then for fly-in, we have a number of our folks from our board, our leadership team. We'll have meetings with both probably the chief's office and then the NRCS region cons, and exploring ways that we can try to facilitate this nationally to more of our members. If those are things that folks on this call, if you're interested in, feel free to send me an email or call me. Also encourage you to always reach out to your NASCA regional director. Those folks are posted on the website. That's a good point of contact for you if you have questions or ideas to share. There's still, of that 20 billion or nearly 20 billion in conservation funding tied to IRA, there's still a lot of that available. And NRCS is asking partners for solutions and ideas. I think what we saw with Iowa, and I think what I've heard from other states, there's more flexibility than maybe what's advertised. We know that there's a handful of programs that are eligible for IRA, and they have to meet certain climate-based objectives. But there's a little flexibility to get the job done, and that's something that as the numbers each year increase for funding to get out, NRCS is going to have to be more creative. Our hope is to offer them ideas to work through our members and through this broader partnership with NACD and others to get money out where we think it's going to be the best investment. If there's no other questions or comments from this group, I just want to thank everybody for attending. The next one of these is tentatively planned for April. You'll see an announcement through our newsletters. And special thanks today to Rakel and to Will for telling us about what's going on in Colorado and Iowa. Very much appreciated. And thanks again for everybody for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Thanks, everybody.